Years ago now, I was told that I was disabled by PTSD and bipolar, these made up fucking names by the government, okay? And as a result of the PTSD being from domestic violence, to include in my medical records the name of Joel Cummings, who was a Skowhegan police officer, and as mentioned of Skowhegan Somerset County Sheriff's Department in there, Officer Deputy Matt Cunningham and Carl Gottardi and a few others. Why? Because Jeff Keaton and Joel being two exes of mine, okay? Never by marriage. Because Joel was sleeping with me underage, and I ended up in a, what was supposed to be a relationship with Jeff Keaton, and pregnant with my oldest daughter. Well, I was 17 when I got pregnant. I was 18 when I had Brianna. So I've always questioned why Joel Cummings is still an officer, but nobody will tell me in Skowhegan, Maine. I got threatened by the chief of police, telling me that if I brought it to light again, then he was going to take me in front of the judge and I would be deemed mentally ill and have me locked up and I wouldn't be talking about anything again. Well, I brought that to his attention several times. And now that I am still right here, where I grew up and started raising my children, and I still defend myself. This is where I was deemed to be disabled. And then the state of Vermont told me I was no longer disabled. Well, why did they tell me I was no longer disabled? Because obviously they had shit that they were trying to hide, which was the fact that they came at me in 2007 with a fictitious fax warrant of abandonment. I didn't even live in Vermont. I had already moved out because the town had, what? They had allowed people to go in and vandalize my home, which was a premeditated situation. I had to move out of town and marry Hare, the old teacher from IEP, who dumbed my daughter down from being a class homeroom honor roll student from Canaan Elementary in Canaan, Maine, ending up in Vermont on an IEP plan. And Mr. Stephen Swindell's the principal still says till this day that if she needed an IEP plan, she certainly would have been on it. And their programs are a lot stronger here in Maine than they are over there in Vermont. So why is it in this little town, population perhaps 800 at the time, in Island Pond, Vermont, the same ones that stole the kids from the 12 tribes, they tried. DHHS tried. And Teddy Miller, the old constable, tried to say that I was part of this fucking cult. Okay, I'm not part of any cult. I come from a very strong lineage and a very adaptable background, which is simplicity. I live a simple life. I used to try to live a private life, but you see, my rights were distorted like that by the government and the state. Everywhere I have been. Because they run in circles and they go hand in hand, okay? So Maine had no problem with me. It was Vermont that created a problem for me when they decided that they were interested in my children. 3 beautiful daughters, okay? The lineage of HOWES blood. Granted the land by the king to come to America and make a difference, okay? The land of the free. My family was the first HOWES family to be granted, my grandfather granted the passage to come over. He was the first HOWES to enter this country. And it seems to be that the states have an issue with that. Isn't that right, TJ Donovan? So we're going to now bring it to light again, like I had before. But Social Security, you see, they didn't like the fact that I have information. Isn't that right, TJ Donovan and Sean Donahue? Because if you didn't have a problem with me having the information that I have, you wouldn't continuously send police officers to my home frivolously, right? Trying to silence me, trying to charge me, trying to imprison me. For what? For telling about the shit that you've done to me in the state of Vermont? Stealing my kids unjustifiably with a fictitious faxed warrant of abandonment after y'all had already done what? Vandalized my home. And tell me to move out of town and Mary Hare would be the teacher to do the transporting. While y'all were doing what? Conspiring against me in the state of Vermont. State agencies and government agencies. Mental health services, Northeast Kingdom Mental Health Services. Okay, this IEP plan, that was something that happened behind my back. I had no idea about it. This Linda Cope that said she worked for Northeast Kingdom Mental Health Services. Northeast Kingdom Mental Health Services tells me that she didn't work for them. But we're going to find out, okay? Because I have all the proof and the paperwork of everything. And that's why the state of Vermont doesn't like me. Here we go. This is Social Security in Vermont. Paperwork that they tried to get from me. These are all the important facts. Well, that's the beginning of me explaining the story. Now we're going to go to part 2, where I make a second call to someone else.